Welcome back to Harville. The Senate struggled with war funding legislation today and rejected Senator Russ Feingold's proposal to cut off money for combat operations in Iraq by April of next year. But the measure did pick up support from Senator Hillary Clinton and Senator Barack Obama among the 29 Democrats who voted for it. So what's going to happen right now? Let's go right now to two guests, Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida and Republican Congressman Jack Kingston of Georgia. Both sit on the Appropriations Committee. Congresswoman, it just seems to me dramatic that 29 Democrats, all Democrats, voted to pull all the money out of Iraq, all the troops out by actually the end of next March, including Dianne Feinstein, who's quite a moderate on the war. She joined the 29. That's a lot of votes, isn't it?
It sure is. It's more than half the Democratic caucus in the Senate, and that joined the 171 Democrats that voted for a similar amendment on the House side last week. We are not, unlike the president, Democrats are not politically tone deaf. We understand that we can no longer give the Iraqi government a blank check and an open-ended commitment. In order to make sure that we can eventually bring our troops home and make progress in Iraq, there have to be benchmarks tied to a timeline and make sure that we can fully fund our troops and take care of our troops while they're there. That's what we've been trying to do all along, and for some reason the Republicans keep rejecting it.
Well, let's go to Congressman Kingston. Let him speak for the Republicans. Sir, do you think there is going to be a deal here? Are we going to get a spending bill to support the troops, which includes some kind of language that both sides can agree to?
Chris, I'm optimistic that we can. I mean, the vote today, Democrats control the Senate and the House. If they wanted out of Iraq, they could pass that bill right now. They're unable to do that. That Senate vote today showed they don't even have the Democrat support to get that done. I believe that we will have a good compromise. I also think, though, that the failure of that vote to pass today showed that people are coming to their senses that you just can't yank your troops out of there. I believe that the benchmarks are a good thing. I think they're a laudable goal, but I think on the other hand, it's impractical to say, hey, whether you reform or not, we're going to leave March at a date certain. And I believe
that... I agree. Well, that seems to be the tenor. I'm sure you watched the debate last night among the presidential candidates in your party, and clearly there was a difference of tone. They were supportive of the president's position, as you are, sir, but they put a lot of pressure on the Iraqi government to get it together.
Well, I think that's the proper thing to do. We want the Iraqi government to get together, but General Petraeus put it this way. He said for them to have major reverse the de-Baathification process would be like going into America right after the Civil War in 1870 and say, all right, now you have to have major civil rights legislation. They're not ready for everything, and they're not going to be ready in the next 6 months, and that's why this thing is frustrating everybody. We want instant democracy, but unfortunately it's going to take a lot more time.
Chris, this is not the Wizard of Oz. We cannot be like Dorothy and click our heels together 3 times and wish our troops home. In order to make sure that we have progress in Iraq, we have to tie the benchmarks to the funding, and we have to make sure that there is a timeline which applies pressure on the Iraqi government to actually make progress. Without those 3 things working together, and I agree with Jack, we do need to work towards compromise, and I think compromise is possible. But with the Republicans as dug in as they are, without any movement whatsoever, how is that going to happen?
Let me liberate our thinking here, mine included. Congressman Kingston, how many years do you think it will take, roughly, to build an Iraqi army capable and with the significant political direction from Baghdad to keep al-Qaeda from establishing a base in that country, to keep the two sides, the Sunni and Shia, from fighting at each other? How many years will it take to have an army strong enough to subdue the civil war, to end it basically, except for some terrorism, and to make sure al-Qaeda doesn't establish a base in that country? How long will it take to get an army that strong?
Chris, I'll cite a Brookings Institute report, and as you know, Brookings is left-leaning, largely Democrat type group, and they've said it's going to take 10 years, but the good news in that is that insurgencies usually fail, and they examine civil wars and disturbances all over the world to come to that conclusion. But it's a very good, I'd say, really nonpartisan study, even though
the people of Georgia support 10 more years of American involvement, military involvement in Iraq.
Well, the people know we're still in Germany and in South Korea.
No. I won't let you get away with that. That is not a fair comparison. We do not have a war in South Korea. There's no German that's fired on an American since 1945. That's not a fair comparison. So
well, it still is going to take time.
It's not a fair comparison.
It still takes time, Chris. I think
No, it's not. I don't know why.
Let me say,
I keep
Chris,
hearing that. That is not an acceptable argument. You cannot compare our peaceful occupation of Germany since 1945, our peaceful occupation of South Korea, with the situation in Iraq. It's much more, Congressman, as if the Korean War had continued all these years.
Well, Chris, let me say one thing, that I have co-sponsored the bipartisan Iraq study group, the set implementation, which Frank Wolf is reintroducing this week. And I think one of the things that it underscores is that if we leave right now, as much as you and I and Debbie might want us to leave right now, that you will have civil war that will spill over the border. I mean, the consequence of leaving are pretty dire.
The Cold War, which I find lazy. These comparisons to previous eras and previous countries do not do us any good. We're in the middle of Arabia, surrounded by 1 billion Islamic people who don't want us there. We have to deal with that fact of Americans getting killed every day. We got 3 guys in captivity right now. It is not fair to compare that to our peaceful occupation of South Korea and Germany.
But
and all the conservatives do it
is,
over and over again. It's lazy thinking, Congressman. It's the kind of, propaganda that has not helped this country understand that situation.
But the Iraqi study group itself, a bipartisan group, which both sides cite quite often, says if you pull out suddenly, you're going to have a civil war that spills over.
Don't compare it to totally different situations in South Korea during the Cold War or Germany today.
All right, Chris, I understand I stepped on a nerve there.
No,
I accept that. But what I'm saying is if you leave...
You stepped into a dishonest comparison, Congressman.
Okay,
that's
Chris.
The problem.
Okay, let me accept that and move on. The point is, if you leave, and saying that you can leave in 9 months is going to leave this country in worse condition. It will devolve
but that
into
is
a
an
civil
argument,
war.
and most Americans are worried about your being right. Let's move on to the realities, though. I'm sorry to get involved in this fight, but some people come on this show over and over again saying things that just aren't true objectively. Thank you, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, and thank you, Congressman Kingston.
Thanks.